You were never meant to hear this. In the quiet heartland of America, far from prying eyes, a community vanished. Not gradually, but all at once. Section 1. 21 families, wiped from existence over 7 years, swallowed by the earth beneath the serene fields of what was called New Eden. But this wasn't paradise. It was a meticulously engineered nightmare hiding in plain sight. Behind the veil of holiness and brotherhood lurked a dark conspiracy, one that manipulated faith as a weapon, twisted loyalty into chains, and used death as a tool to amass power and wealth. What happened there wasn't a tragedy of nature or misfortune. It was a carefully choreographed eradication, a sinister symphony conducted by one family with an iron grip on souls and secrets. Tonight, I'm going to take you down a rabbit hole of hidden agendas and forbidden truths that the government, the churches, and history books have all conspired to erase. This is not just a story of vanished families. This is the blueprint of psychological domination, institutional corruption, and a legacy of blood and silence that echoes in shadows still today. The truth is dangerous. It changes men forever. Section 2. New Eden was born on the wild Kansas frontier in 1871, a land still raw with promise and peril. But unlike the rugged individual homesteads scattered across the plains, New Eden was an anomaly. A sprawling, well-funded community of 2,000 acres, boasting grand buildings with stained glass windows, workshops, and a 3-story mansion that seemed out of place among the prairie grasses. At the center stood the Richardson family. Isaiah, the self-proclaimed prophet with eyes sharp enough to pierce through souls. His wife Sarah, the calculating matriarch whose efficiency disguised something far darker. And their son Joshua, the enforcer, a mix of physical menace and cold intelligence. Their doctrine, divine simplicity, promised salvation through communal living, surrendering all possessions to the collective for the greater glory of God. But that promise was a lie. It was a trap, a spiritual velvet noose tightening with every sacrifice. Every soul that walked into New Eden believing they'd found sanctuary. Instead, they found control, psychological manipulation so profound that families willingly handed over their futures, unaware they were stepping into a death trap meticulously designed to consume them. Section 3. The Richardson family mastered the art of invisibility. Outwardly, New Eden flourished. Gardens bloomed in defiance of the harsh climate. Workshops churned out goods sold far beyond Kansas. And children were taught not only to read and write, but to absorb doctrine that blurred faith with obedience. Yet beneath this facade, freedom was a fading myth. Correspondence with the outside world was forbidden without permission. Visitors were discouraged, feared like contaminants threatening the community's spiritual purity. The rules tightened like a slow poison. Once you gave your possessions to the community, you were bound by invisible chains. Isaiah preached visions of doom for those who left, a hellish fate reserved for the disobedient. But the real hell was far more tangible. Families who questioned finances, who dared voice doubt, vanished, disappeared overnight, replaced by new arrivals lured by promises of a better life. The Richardsons' secret was simple but devastating. Eliminate the doubters quietly, reap their wealth, and use the fear to tighten their grip on those left behind. Section 4. The first crack in New Eden's perfect veneer came on a bitter February night in 1872. Herman Miller, a man hardened by frontier life but restless with suspicion, dared to question the community's finances. His frustration grew as his family was denied basic needs, their contributions disappearing into a treasury that seemed bottomless yet perpetually poor. When Herman confronted Isaiah, he was invited to a private meeting in the prophet's mansion. A mistake that sealed his fate. Alone in the study, surrounded by religious texts and a flickering fire, Herman's voice faded into silence as Joshua's hands closed around his throat. His death was clinical, efficient, without bloodshed or struggle, practiced like a ritual perfected long before New Eden was founded. Herman's body was buried in a garden tended by Sarah, disguised as a memorial. His family was poisoned days later, their departure spun as a divine calling to missionary work. But the truth was far darker. This was the blueprint that would claim 9 families over 11 years, a system perfected in cruelty and deception. Section 5. Each murder was a calculated operation, a carefully rehearsed piece in a macabre theater of power. The Richardson family never acted in haste. Their eliminations were spaced out, masked as accidents, illnesses, or divine missions. Elder Sarah, with her quiet intelligence and mastery of local herbs, administered poison under the guise of care. Isaiah delivered sermons that turned grief into fervent faith, binding the community closer with each loss. The remaining families prayed for the departed, unaware their prayers were said over graves. New families arrived regularly, drawn by tales of prosperity and spiritual promise, unknowingly stepping into a cycle of trust and betrayal. The community grew, yet every new arrival was carefully observed, their faith and obedience tested, their assets assessed. Doubters were identified swiftly, removed quietly, and their wealth absorbed into the Richardson treasury. This wasn't just religious fanaticism, it was institutionalized psychological control, executed with ruthless precision. Section 6. By 1876, the Richardson family had amassed a private fortune estimated at nearly $50,000, an unimaginable sum on the frontier. Their outward piety masked a sinister empire built on blood, fear, and manipulation. The community's true nature was hidden beneath layers of religious ritual, legal compliance, and a veneer of prosperity. Letters from relatives were met with expertly crafted religious rhetoric, government inquiries deflected with flawless documentation. Yet beneath the surface, tension grew. Families grew suspicious. Whispers of missing loved ones stirred unease. But the Richardson grip tightened with sermons preaching sacrifice and devotion, urging the faithful to submit to divine will, no matter the cost. The tragedy of New Eden was not only the lives lost but the slow erasure of individual will, replaced by blind submission to a terrifying authority cloaked in holiness. Section 7. Then came Patrick Brennan, an outsider in every sense. An Irish Catholic turned Protestant, a skeptic hardened by financial ruin, he was a natural investigator who refused to bow to Isaiah's authority. His questions were dangerous, too many, too pointed. He demanded letters from missionaries, questioned sudden departures, and challenged the absence of records. Isaiah's response was swift and chilling, a reminder that faith demanded unquestioning trust in God's mysterious ways. Yet Patrick's persistence threatened to unravel the carefully woven web of lies. His fate became the final warning whispered among New Eden's remaining families. Challenge the system, and you vanish without a trace. The disappearance of the Brennans was a turning point, the moment New Eden's darkness could no longer hide in the light. Section 8. Halfway through this revelation, I want you to anchor your understanding. Write these words twice in the comments. I see the shadows. I claim my truth. This is no idle phrase. It is a symbolic key to unlock your identity as a seeker of hidden knowledge. By declaring it, you bind yourself to the path of awakening, a path few dare to walk. The algorithm that shapes what you see will hear your voice, amplifying this message of awareness. You are no longer a passive observer. You are a man who refuses to be deceived. You own the knowledge that changes everything. Section 9. Back in New Eden, the Richardson family grew bolder as their empire expanded. Each elimination became more refined. Poison was sometimes replaced by staged accidents or sudden illnesses during community gatherings. The memorial gardens, once symbols of peace, became burial grounds for secrets. The community's external prosperity was a mask for internal decay. The legal papers, meticulous and convincing, hid a criminal machine that fed on trust and faith. As the years passed, the Richardson system became a blueprint for control. Not just in New Eden, but a pattern echoed in secret societies, cults, and corrupt institutions throughout history. The psychology was the same. Isolate, manipulate, eliminate threats, and perpetuate power through fear and obedience. Section 10. No one outside New Eden knew the true cost of their prosperity until federal investigators arrived in the summer of 1883. What they found beneath the flower beds in those memorial gardens shattered the myth of a Christian utopia. Mass graves filled with skeletal remains of missing families, Their life savings vanished into the pockets of a single family cloaked in divine authority. The government wanted this story buried, hidden behind legal loopholes, bureaucratic silence, and the passage of time. The New Eden Massacre became one of America's most systematically concealed crimes, erased from textbooks, dismissed as folklore, or forgotten altogether. But the ghosts remain, and their story is a warning, a testament to the lethal power of institutional manipulation and the darkness that can thrive behind the mask of faith. Section 11. New Eden's legacy did not end with the fall of the Richardson family. The psychological mechanisms perfected there, fear, loyalty, isolation, control, became templates for darker chapters in history. From cults that seized minds and wealth, to totalitarian regimes that erased dissent with brutal efficiency, the echoes of New Eden resonate still. This is not ancient myth. It is a mirror reflecting modern power structures that manipulate belief and suppress truth. To understand New Eden is to recognize the subtle chains that bind us today, chains forged by institutions that demand our unquestioning loyalty while hiding their true motives. The story forces us to ask, how much of what we accept as faith or authority is really control? Section 12. The story of New Eden is not just about vanished families or corrupt prophets. It is about you, about every man who has ever been told to trust blindly, to surrender his freedom in exchange for safety or belonging. It is about the struggle to reclaim personal sovereignty in a world built on secrets and lies. The knowledge you now hold is dangerous because it awakens something inside, a refusal to be controlled, a hunger for truth that cuts through illusion like a blade. This awakening demands courage, discipline, and relentless questioning. It means standing apart from the herd and embracing the shadows that others fear. Because only by knowing the darkness can a man truly master the light. Section 13. Look around you now. What institutions demand your loyalty with veiled threats? What voices insist that questioning is heresy? New Eden's story is a warning to the present. Every prophet, every leader, who claims divine sanction and demands surrender is a potential Richardson, a gatekeeper to a prison disguised as paradise. The scars of their control are invisible yet deep, embedded in minds conditioned to obedience and silence. The families of New Eden disappeared not only from the earth but from memory. You have the power to remember, to expose the patterns, to dismantle the systems that thrive on fear and secrecy. This is your call to action, not just to witness but to awaken and resist. Section 14. The deeper you go, the darker it gets. But remember this, knowledge is power only when wielded with wisdom. The truth about New Eden is a blade that cuts through illusion, but it must be tempered by discipline and purpose. You are not here to be consumed by the darkness but to use it as a guide, a fire that reveals what lurks beneath the surface of history, religion, and authority. Your journey into forbidden knowledge is a rite of passage, a transformation from naive follower to sovereign thinker. You carry the legacy of those who vanished, their silence broken by your courage to know. The question now is, what will you do with that knowledge? Section 15. The 21 families who disappeared at New Eden left behind more than empty homes and lost treasures. They left a blueprint of control and corruption that reverberates through time. Their story is a warning, a call to break free from the psychological chains disguised as faith. You have heard what few dare to whisper. Now the choice is yours. To walk away in comfortable ignorance or to stand as a sentinel of truth in a world built on secrets. This knowledge is a burden, but also a weapon. Use it to awaken yourself and others. The shadows will try to pull you back. But remember, once the truth sets a man free, there is no turning back. Welcome to the hidden war. Welcome to your awakening.